Hi everyone, it's me. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you. Week 1 of the 2024 NFL season is in the books, and today I will be predicting every game in Week 2. But before I do that, I will recap my picks from last week real quick here. I had a pretty good week overall. I went 12-4 with my picks, but there were a few misses that are worth noting. The first of which I picked Green Bay to upset Philadelphia in Brazil. It was a high-scoring game as I predicted, but I just did not pick the correct winner. Cincinnati, what the fuck, man? Losing to the Patriots at home. I picked the Falcons to beat the Steelers. Yeah, Kirk Cousins looked rough. And my last miss was the Browns beating the Cowboys. I was completely wrong there. That game was never close, and Deshaun Watson at this point is completely cooked. But other than that, I was pretty accurate with most of my picks. And now I will go into my Week 2 picks. We began with Thursday Night Football with Buffalo at Miami, and I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, I think that this is the game of the week. 4 of the last 5 games between these two teams have been decided by 7 points or less, and I think that's what we're going to get in this meeting here. It's worth noting that Josh Allen in his career is 11-2 against the Miami Dolphins. He just carves them up every time he faces them. And on the other side, Tua Tagovailoa tends to not play super well against the Bills. Now, the Bills' defense looked more suspect than usual last week against the Cardinals. Obviously, we know they lost both of their safeties in the offseason. The ultimate difference maker in this matchup is Josh Allen. He just balls out every time he faces the Dolphins. For that reason, give me the Bills. We begin the Sunday 1 o'clock slate with Jets at Titans. Both teams 0-1, looking to avoid an 0-2 start. The Jets got dog-walked by the 49ers, as I told you they would. They were never competitive in that game. And on the other side, the Titans blew it against the Bears. Caleb Williams was awful, but Will Levis was worse and lost them that game. If you watched my preseason team record predictions, you can tell that I'm not a big believer in the Jets, and their performance against the 49ers this past week really doesn't inspire any confidence in me. I don't think the Titans are good. I don't think Will Levis is good. However, this Jets defense, which is kind of their calling card, the Jets defense is much worse on the road than they are at home. I smell an upset here, so give me the Titans. Call it the upset of the week. Next up, we have 49ers at Vikings. Both of these teams are coming off dominant Week 1 performances. As I said, the 49ers curb stomped the Jets, and the Vikings, how about Sam Darnold against the Giants? The 49ers are heavily favored here, and for a reason. They're a much more talented team than the Vikings. However, the Vikings upset the 49ers last year. I think the Vikings are well coached. They have a nice array of offensive skill position talent. They are at home. I think they will keep it close against the 49ers, but I think the 49ers will pull it out, so I'm going to pick the 49ers to win this one. Up next, we have the Raiders and the Ravens, both teams coming in at 0-1. The Ravens lost to the Chiefs last week in a close one, and the Raiders got outclassed by the Chargers, as I expected them to. On the Baltimore side of things, this is an absolute gotta have it. First off, the Raiders are terrible. I think we all knew they would be terrible. But after this game, the Ravens have a road game in Dallas, a home game against the Bills, a road game in Cincinnati. I know they stunk it up against the Patriots, but Cincinnati is by no means a walkover game. They're going to win this game. I'm very confident in that. I'm going to call this the lock of the week. The Ravens are a much more talented team than the Raiders, with a much better quarterback, a much better coach, and they're at home. Give me the Ravens to blow out the Raiders. We then have the first game of Week 2, where the two teams don't have the same record. The Chargers come in at 1-0. The Panthers come in at 0-1. The Chargers won last week by 12 at home against the Raiders. They looked very good in that game. They ran the ball well. They played good defense. On the other side, Carolina, 47 to a team led by Derek Carr and Dennis Allen. Bryce Young completed less than 50% of his passes and had multiple interceptions. That is an absolute flaming dumpster. So give me the Chargers here. I think that's pretty obvious. Browns at Jaguars. Both teams 0-1. The Browns got fucking destroyed last week at home against the Cowboys, and the Jaguars, they blew it. They blew it against the Dolphins last week. We're up 14 and did a bunch of dumb shit to lose. Listen, Deshaun Watson is absolutely cooked. He looks horrible. The Browns defense, while awesome at home, got carved up last week. The Browns defense not nearly as good on the road as they are at home. And Jacksonville, I think, is just a better team here. I think Jacksonville wins. We then have the 1-0 Saints and the 1-0 Cowboys. Both teams coming off dominant performances in week 1. Of course, the Cowboys blew out the Browns, and the Saints 47-10 over the Panthers. The Cowboys, as we know, are awesome at home, and when they play a really bad team at home, they tend to win by at least 20, sometimes 30 or 40. Do I buy the Saints hype at all? No. I mean, Carolina went 2-15 last year for a reason. I think the Cowboys are pretty clearly a better team than the Panthers. The Cowboys have the better quarterback, the better coach, the better roster all around. They're the obvious pick here, so give me the Cowboys. Next up, we have the Colts visiting the Packers. Both teams are 0-1. I was impressed with the Colts' performance last week, even though they lost to Houston. I thought they played them really tough. Green Bay, on the other hand, they lost their starting quarterback for a few weeks. I don't know how long Jordan Love's going to be out, but I know for a fact that he's not playing this week. So the question is, do I believe in Malik Willis? No, not one bit. The Colts need the game. They're going to take it. Sorry, Green Bay, you're starting 0-2. Next up, we have Giants at Commanders. This Giants team looks every bit as bad as I thought they would be. They lost 28-6 at home to the Vikings and made Sam Darnold look like Tom Brady. The Commanders, on the other hand, got blown out by Tampa last week. However, the one silver lining is that Jaden Daniels played well. The Commanders are at home this year. I think Jaden Daniels is going to play well again against the Giants, and the Commanders should win at home. Next up, I'm shocked that Fox is not featuring this game at the top of their 1 o'clock single-header window. A playoff rematch from last year, Tampa Bay and Detroit. Both teams looked excellent last week. Of course, the Lions won in overtime against the Rams, and the Buccaneers, as I just said, blew out the Commanders. Baker Mayfield looked really good. I think that this game is going to be pretty high scoring. I think both quarterbacks are going to play well, both Baker and Jared Goff. The Lions won last year's divisional round game 31-23. I do think the Lions are better, and I do think they will win at home, but I do think this will be close. Tampa should give them a game. I expect this to be probably something like 31-24, which is about what we saw last year in the divisional round. Next up, we have the Seahawks and the Patriots to close out the 1 o'clock window. I suppose I should start with the Patriots. They really surprised me last week going into Cincinnati, and that wasn't even like a really fluky win where there were like muffed punts and blocked field goals and all that stuff. They just outplayed Cincinnati, outgained them, won the turnover battle 2-0. So yeah, good job, Patriots. On the other side, the Seahawks held serve at home against the Broncos, as I expected them to. Listen, I know the Patriots had a really impressive win last week. I still don't think they're good. I think Seattle's better. I think they come back to earth this week. I think Seattle wins. Moving on, at 4:05 Eastern Time, we have the Rams and the Cardinals, both teams at 0-1. The Cardinals, a gutty effort in Buffalo last week, but they couldn't get it done. Their offense appears to have some upside. However, their defense is total Swiss cheese, as I expected it to be. The Rams, on the other hand, lost in overtime to Detroit. Matthew Stafford played really well. Tough loss. The Rams are clearly the side here. Sean McVay, we all know he has dominated the Cardinals in his career as the Rams head coach. I'm pretty sure he's undefeated in Arizona during that time. So, yeah, the Rams bounce back. The Cardinals fall to 0-2. Next up, the highly anticipated Bengals versus Chiefs, Burrow versus Mahomes, Chapter 5. Cincinnati, what the actual was that last week? You lost a home game against probably the worst team in the conference. As I said, got thoroughly outplayed by them. Kansas City, on the other hand, beat Baltimore at home, as I expected them to. Every time Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes have met, the game has been decided by 3 points. Do I think this is going to be decided by 3 points? No, especially not with how Cincinnati looked last week. Do I think Kansas City's blow them out? Not necessarily. The Bengals do play the Chiefs pretty tough, but right now, I mean, the Chiefs are obviously the better team than the Bengals. It's really hard to believe in the Bengals in a road game at Arrowhead when you just lost a home game to the bleeping Patriots. So I think the Chiefs are the obvious pick here. Undercard to Bengals at Chiefs. We have Steelers at Broncos. Russell Wilson's first game in Denver since he was cut there this offseason. The Steelers won in Atlanta last week, didn't score a touchdown, but I mean, Chris Boswell's old reliable, right? On the other side, Denver lost to Seattle by 6. Listen, I actually like Denver in this spot. I think Sean Payton and the Broncos know this is a game they have to win to avoid falling to 0-2. I know Pittsburgh has a really good defense, but I have no reason to believe their offense is any good. I think Sean Payton's going to have a good game plan here, and I think the Broncos are going to beat the Steelers. Next up on Sunday night, Bears at Texans, Caleb Williams versus CJ Stroud. Highly anticipated. Both teams coming in at 1-0. The Bears beat the Titans, but were super lucky. Super lucky. Tennessee straight up gave them that game. Caleb Williams did not look good at all. CJ Stroud, on the other hand, CJ Stroud and the Texans, they won in Indy last week. Based on what I saw from these two teams last week, I think Houston's clearly the pick here. Do I think Caleb will get better as the season goes on? Yes, but is he going to be that much better in week 2 than he was in week 1? Methinks not. So give me Houston. I think they're better than the Bears. They should win. And we conclude with Monday night, Falcons at Eagles. The Eagles won in Brazil a week ago over the Packers. Saquon Barkley looked really good. However, their defense and their quarterback, is not so much. Kind of a continuation from what we saw at the end of last year. On the other hand, Atlanta with a really ugly loss at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I said, the Falcons didn't allow a touchdown, but they still lost in spite of that. They scored 10 points. Kirk Cousins looked terrible. That analysis should say that Philly should win fairly easily, but I'm not going to say that. I think this is a bounce back spot for the Falcons. Like I said, the Eagles defense looked rough last week. They are not anywhere near as good as the Steelers defense. I think Kirk Cousins should have a really good day throwing the ball against the Eagles defense. Atlanta needs the game way more than Philly, and therefore I do like Atlanta to win in Philly on Monday night. And that will be all for today. I remind you to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, to subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and to click the bell icon to be notified of future uploads. I also encourage you to leave a comment telling me what I was right about, what I was wrong about, and how I can improve these videos in the future. I appreciate the feedback very, very much. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all again next week.